Thank you both. Let's bring in our next guest, a Republican congressman from Florida, Greg Steube. Thank you so much for joining us. Greg, I saw you just shaking your head there just a moment ago. What are the odds that you think this makes it through Congress?
Well, the good thing is this is budgetary. We can do it through the reconciliation process, and Congress holds the purse strings. And the founders of our country did that because they realized that the executive branch needed to have a check. So Congress just simply needs to defund the Department of Education to accomplish President Trump's goals. You can do that through the reconciliation process, and we're doing that now. The budget reconciliation has passed the House, as we're waiting for the Senate to act on that. When we go through budget negotiations, this is one of the items that can be dealt with through the budget reconciliation process. So we don't need 60 votes in the Senate. We only need a majority. So even 2 senators, I guess 3 senators, could vote no on the Republican side, and it still would pass through the reconciliation process. That's absolutely how we have to accomplish this. You're right, it wouldn't get 60 votes in the Senate, but if you do it through budget reconciliation, and it's absolutely a budget item because Congress decides how much we fund the Department of Education, we could accomplish that through reconciliation and only need 50+1.
And Greg, I know Florida is one of the states that's really made a lot of headlines in recent years as parents have sought more control over curriculums and books in schools. What is your reaction to seeing this executive order signed today?
I think it's great for the country. I think it's great for states like Florida. I've co-sponsored the legislation to do away with the Department of Education for years. Here in the state of Florida, the money follows the child. So charter schools get funding from the state per pupil funding, and you see a huge amount of charter schools that are very, very successful here in Florida that has higher curriculum standards, has higher outcomes for students. And at the end of the day, we want our students to perform. One of the stats I saw, interestingly, the Department of Education has only been around since 1970. So the first 200 years, I would challenge you, we probably had better outcomes in math and science than we did for the last 50 or so. So I think it's very important that we support the president on the congressional side. We have the ability to do that. We can do that through reconciliation. And I think it's time to push that authority to the districts and to the states and let them decide what's best for our kids.
Now, not everyone loves the idea of dismantling the education department. Some say that this could actually mean that Americans might pay higher taxes. Would that be the case in Florida? Very curious how your state is going to move forward with this.
No, curriculum is already determined by your school districts. You have the states that fund that. As you heard the president say, Pell Grants, those type of things, financial resources are still going to be provided, whether that's through the Department of Education or another agency in the federal government. That's yet to be decided, but that's still going to stay. And you're gonna push more funding to the states and push more funding to your school districts. The school districts determine their own budgets to pay teachers and that sort of thing. So that's up to your elected officials at your county level, which every American will tell you they'd rather have their elected officials at the local levels making these decisions, especially as it relates to our children.
Other big headlines today, President Trump's deportation battle, the judge demanding answers about those deportation flights carrying hundreds of Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador's notorious mega prison. The White House calling them violent gang members, but admitting that many of them don't have criminal records in the U.S. Where do you stand on this?
I 100% support deporting gang members in our country. What you're seeing is the only way that the Democrats can fight against President Trump and his administration is by filing lawsuits. You're going to see it with the Department of Education. You're seeing it with all the things that are happening on the border, and that'll work its way through the process. The district judge that ruled on that case was a Biden-appointed liberal judge. It'll go through the appellate court. It'll go through the U.S. Supreme Court, and I would wager to guess that the U.S. Supreme Court's going to say that it's fully within the jurisdiction of the President of the United States as it relates to Immigration and Border Patrol to be able to deport gang members back to their host country. So I 100% support what the administration is doing. I think we need to do more of it. We've got 12 million illegals that came into our country over the last 4 years of Joe Biden, and getting rid of gang members and rapists and criminals and terrorists is at the top of the list.
But are you concerned at all as to how gang members is being defined if those people don't have any record in the United States?
If they're gang members and affiliated in their different countries of origin, whether that be Guatemala or whatever country it is, then we absolutely can use that as part of the deportation process. Just by crossing the border and coming into our country illegally, they, by definition, are illegally here in our country, and the president has the authority to deport those people. 96% of those people claiming asylum that have a court order and a judge, 96% of them are ordered deported back into their country. Under the Biden administration, none of those people were deported. So they have a tall order with the Trump administration to get all of these asylum individuals that have been ordered deported out of our country.
Greg Steube, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to see you.
A make or break